after a college football season that was in jeopardy from the start. Going back all the way to the spring, it was unknown if this football season was not only going to start on time, but if it was going to start at all. And in an offseason that included conference-only schedules, then the Big Ten and Pac-12 deciding to cancel their fall season with hopes of playing in the spring. But after dozens of Nebraska parents harassed Kevin Warren and the Big Ten with lawsuits, the Big Ten Conference came up with a plan to return to play, and the Pac-12 followed just a few weeks later. The Big Ten started off their season a couple of weeks before the Pac-12 did. And a total of 137 games, if you include bowl games, and if you include a few games that had to get postponed to Sunday, 137 games this season were either postponed or canceled. But we are at the championship game, and we are down to two teams. We have, in the national championship game, the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Ohio State Buckeyes. And what a matchup we have to end what I think is the craziest college football season that we have ever had. Now, let's look at some numbers for this matchup. And it's quite possible that this championship game, it just screams a shootout here, because both teams are in the top 6 in the FBS in total offense. Alabama is 6th in total offense, averaging 535 yards per game, while Ohio State is 4th in total offense, averaging just under 545 yards per game. These two teams are also in the top 5 in the FBS in scoring offense. Alabama is 2nd with 48.2 points per game on average, only behind Kent State, who only played 4 games this season. And Ohio State is 5th in scoring offense, scoring an average of 43.4 points per game. Scoring defense, Alabama is 13th and Ohio State is 31st. So let's get to some keys to the game here for this championship matchup. Let's start with Alabama. One thing for Alabama is to play disciplined, because Alabama is 105th when it comes to the least penalized team. So they are one of the top penalized teams in college football. Utilize Devontae Smith, who is, I think, is going to win the Heisman Trophy. If he doesn't, he at least deserves to win it. The best receiver in college football, leading college football in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. And utilize your other receivers as well around Devontae Smith. And quick releases from quarterback Mac Jones. And Devontae Smith is a huge reason why Mac Jones is 2nd in college football in passing yards. For Ohio State, it's important to account for Devontae Smith at all times. If you're Ohio State, I think you'd be okay with letting any other receiver beat you other than Devontae Smith. I mean, if another Alabama receiver has to beat you in coverage at some point in the game, so be it. And in fact, Devontae Smith versus Shaun Wade is one of those 4 matchups that I have as matchups to watch in this championship game. And this is what I think could be the big equalizer in this game for Ohio State. If they can provide running lanes for running back Trey Sermon, who in his last 3 games has rushed for 336 yards and 4 touchdowns just in his last 3 games. This also can be important for Ohio State. Give Trey Sermon at least 30 carries. In his last 2 games, where he's absolutely just dominated in the running game, he's had 29 carries in the Big Ten championship game and 31 carries in the semifinal against Clemson. So 30 carries for Trey Sermon. And I think Ohio State's got a good shot to win this game and pull off the upset. Now, in my matchups to watch, I already addressed Devontae Smith and Shaun Wade. Another matchup to watch within the receivers versus the secondary, Chris Olave versus Patrick Surtain II. That's going to be a huge matchup, and if Surtain, if he can hold Chris Olave or even Garrett Wilson, depending on what Ohio State's going to do, how they're going to match up with each other, one of the big differences in that game. The running game versus the run defenses. I know that I talked about Trey Sermon already, but Najee Harris has had a good season overall. In fact, I feel like Najee Harris should have been at least a Heisman finalist. But he finished 5th in the Heisman voting. And most importantly, this is going to have a huge impact on the game. But third downs versus third downs. And what I mean by that is which team is going to convert on third down the best. Now, Alabama is first in third down conversions, while Ohio State is 6th. So which team is going to force the opposition into long yardage situations on third down? Also, as I mentioned the running backs a moment ago, time of possession could be important. While Alabama is 57th in time of possession, which is mainly because Alabama has, I think, the best offense in college football. But Ohio State is 9th in time of possession. And when you have a running back like Trey Sermon, who's been doing well in his last 3 games, and he could easily bleed the clock, turn the clock, keeping Alabama's offense on the sidelines. So that is another equalizer for Ohio State. I think that can work into Ohio State's favor. But for a prediction for this game, I think we're going to be in for an epic championship game. As I said, Alabama, I think, has the best offense in college football. But Ohio State's offense easily matches up to Alabama's offense. They do say that offense wins you games, defense wins you championships. And I'm going to pick Alabama to win the national championship game. Now, I've seen some people on social media say it's going to be a blowout for Alabama, but I don't think so. I think Ohio State's offense keeps them in the game. But I think in the end, though, the Crimson Tide pick up in a shootout a 48-43 victory. And let's also account that this is Ryan Day's first national championship game. While Nick Saban, he's in his 10th one. So coaching experience for Nick Saban, definite advantage for Alabama compared to Ohio State. So the experience that Nick Saban has, definitely an advantage for Alabama. Both these teams, they do have some advantages, but I think Alabama wins in a shootout in the very end. Comment your prediction down below, like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. I do want to say before I sign off, I do want to thank everybody for tuning in, and thank you for a great college football season. For those of you that listen to me year-round, I'm going to do some NFL stuff, NFL draft stuff in the off-season. But for those of you that only watch or listen during the college football season, thank you for tuning in all season long, and I will see you again in the fall.